I'm so pleased to be here. And the whole time I've been in Argentina this week presenting the book, it's really felt like bringing the book home, because this is really where the shock doctrine was born. This is where the idea for the book really germinated as I learned the history of this country and as I was educated by so many teachers, friends, who took the time to tell me their stories, their personal stories, their family stories, and share their clear, radical analysis of capitalism. And I hope that this book honors their generosity and their courage. One of my best teachers, one of my best history teachers, was actually my Spanish teacher. This is the secret. She was supposed to be teaching me Spanish, but in the streets there was a revolution, and her name is Nora Streselevich. She's a survivor of Club Atletico, and we would sit down to study Spanish. We would cover the apartment in Buenos Aires in stickers, and then we would look at each other going, why are we indoors? We have to go outdoors. So this is why I don't speak Spanish. So I want to, the film that we just watched, I think you know, was made by the wonderful filmmaker Alfonso Cuarón, who made Y Tu Mamá También and Children of Men. He made it with his son, Jonás Cuarón. And this film is so wonderful for moments like this, because it really lays out the thesis of the book so succinctly. To talk about this idea of disaster capitalism, what's old about it and what's new about it. Because of course it is an old idea, but it's also an idea that is changing. And I realize there are many people in this room who believe that there is no other kind of capitalism than disaster capitalism, that all capitalism is a disaster, and I agree, but still we're going to define a few things. One very clear example of what is not new about disaster capitalism is that we know that in the colonial period, during the genocide of the Americas, disasters were used by the colonizers to grab land that wasn't theirs. One thing that's very powerful is to read the diaries, particularly of the settlers of North America, the Pilgrims in particular, where epidemics, where disease epidemics really played the role of cleansing the land so that it could be colonized. And of course religion, as is so often the case, was a great accomplice for this theft. And the Pilgrim leaders would write in their diaries that smallpox was a gift from God. God gave them smallpox to clear the land of Indians. And so it was, in some ways, they called it the divine plague. That's disaster capitalism. We see a direct echo of this language, of this racist language today. Most recently, the last time I heard it very powerfully was in New Orleans, after Hurricane Katrina came and the levees broke and the city was flooded. 10 days after that happened, only 10 days, the city was still flooded. And a Republican congressman, a powerful politician from that area, said, we couldn't clean out the housing projects where the African Americans lived. He said, we couldn't clean out the housing projects, but God did. So this is also disaster capitalism. And what is new is that I think the market has adapted to a reality of constant crisis. And so, whereas in an earlier era you had a shock, like a war, an epidemic, and that cleared the ground for a market that wanted stability, ultimately, that wanted stability for trade, now we're in a new era where you can have constant crises and you can still have tremendous profits in the midst of these crises. Disasters themselves are the fastest growing, most profitable part of the global economy, serving disasters, creating disasters, what I call the disaster capitalism complex. Now, I realize that this isn't new either, that there have always been companies that sell weapons, that reconstruct after wars, that there's always been profit there as well. But I do believe that we have entered a new era. The difference is that privatizing the military, privatizing the police, privatizing humanitarian agencies, that this is the final frontier for neoliberalism, for the logic of privatization. Everything else has already been privatized, right? And I think we see that very clearly in Argentina.